First things first, let's talk about the skill tree, because I think this is gonna catch a lot of you off guard. Because we are using the green tree, which is usually not that great of a choice. However, this time around we do get a few skills in there that are actually quite helpful. For instance, we are using Rise to the Occasion, which gives us health regen depending on how low our shield is. Normally this is quite anti-synergistic with the green tree, just because of, you know, you have the barrier, so your shield's probably always going to be at least not empty. However, this time around I am using the Infiltrator class mod. So my shield will constantly be broken and almost never be above 0. Therefore we always get the 5%, which is nice, because when your shield's empty you need the health regen the most. Then we have some really expensive jackets, so, you know, being frozen or being slowed down by cryo lasts or has a shorter duration. And we have refreshment. This will give us health steal based on frozen enemies, and that is actually very important for this build. Next we have red tree. There isn't much in here we can take for this build, at least, because not using clone, not using self damage, so there's not even any point in going to Dark Type mod. Flame Unitas is just 2 bullets in a chamber. It's not that big of a deal, but I figured what else am I going to put the points into. Borrowed Time, skill duration, stacks with cannon twice, stacks once from barrier, so 90% duration from this. Very nice, just for uptime. Blue tree, Vital Momentum, obviously, plus 5 points from Infiltrator class mode. Cold Bore, not really for cry damage, just for like swap speed, in case, you know, you go into 5 life or whatever. Can be helpful there. Violent speed, more gun damage, reload speed, more DPS, kill skill bonus, more DPS, fire rate, more DPS, uptime for action skills, and more DPS. Purple tree is just some accuracy. I could have gone for the health regen, but I already have 9% health regen, so going from 9 to 10.5% isn't that big. So I instead opted to go for the accuracy, which is actually kind of nice, because I'm using shotguns in this build. Then commitment, some gun damage, not that important, but the cooldown rate is actually very important for the cannon. I'll explain why later. Fugitive, just, you know, being able to sprint and shoot, very nice. And yeah, action skill is cannon with this, because the freeze rate on this is actually global, so it doesn't just apply to the cannon itself, but it also applies to Zane. So if I do any cry damage, that cry damage will also get the increased freeze rate. Very nice. This could have gone for this, like, they're both pretty much inconsequential. Then for the barrier, these two are the only ones that work while the barrier is 1, and normally you don't get this one, so you just pick like one of these for like whenever you put it down first. But now that we are going down this far in the green tree, we can just pick up both. And it's also like kind of nice. It protects you from being meleeed a lot. Then you have the gear, which, as you may have expected from the name of this build, is a face puncher. This one is for just general fighting, and this one is for fight for your life. You know, whenever terror goes away, things like that. Or just you're just fighting an enemy that just takes less damage from cryo, like cryo weight, etc. So the idea is to use the face puncher, but while you would normally use, for instance, a frozen heart, which just freezes enemies to give them triple damage taken from melee, we are this time using the Brawler Ward, because that also gives us triple damage, or actually quadruple damage, because it's plus 30%, and also a bit of gun damage, but that's not important. It gives us 300% melee damage while shield is depleted, but because we're using the Infiltrator, that is pretty much going to be at all times. Because the Infiltrator, unlike the action skill start alignment, it completely depletes your shield always. So we are always at 0 capacity because of this. Very nice interaction there. Plus we also get like some 4% health regen, which is very nice. Like I said, 4% from this, 5% from this, so 9%. Both are of max health, so it's like always very good. Then the passives on this are just melee damage, some Hyperion reload speed for the face puncher, and some mag size again for the face puncher, obviously. Then the artifact is an Icebreaker static charge. Icebreaker, more damage when frozen, and more cryo efficiency. Static charge is 100% bonus shock damage, even though it says 50%. It's 100% shock damage versus the guy you're shooting or meleeing. But it's then between 25 and I believe 200 or 300% of the shock damage based on the charge, which depletes after a single shot. So it's mostly just for some low damage chains and the main damage against the enemy. On there is then cryo damage again, cryo efficiency again. So this artifact alone gives us 105% cryo efficiency and a bit more melee damage. Then the alignments. We have Terra Cryo. So that applies to both the face puncher and the chains. So the chains can actually also like freeze enemies. That's why I'm focusing this much on cryo efficiency. We have Brawler with melee attacks generate Terra. Just we need to get that Terra somehow. And since we're using face puncher anyways, there's no reason to use like ASE or whatever. And the Fish Slap with just Terra damage fire rate. The damage is V1 damage, therefore it applies to the chains and the cryo on the chains. It doesn't double dip the cryo on the chains, but you know. And the fire rate is just more DPS. As for gun rank, we want to disable shield reboot and emergency response, because we don't want any recharge rate or not empty shields. Because as soon as we have a single unit of shields, we are losing that 300% melee damage as well as some health regen. So it's important for us to keep the shields empty at all times. Which is also why I didn't go for Conco Collected, because this has to recharge your shields first before they can give you more action skill duration. Then for Mayhem, we are using Speed Demon. Obviously it's a Zane build. Healy Avenger and Drone Ranger. They're both pretty much inconsequential, but it just makes... It's just one of those non-modifiers effectively. Makes things a lot easier. And not the face, because we aren't critting people anyways, or at least not for damage. The chains can crit people, but that's more used for brain freeze than actual damage. So since melee can't crit anyways, not even on the diadems, it's just a very good thing to have this. Or at least it's not as bad as the other ones. One final thing I would like to note is that the Terra Cryo, as I said earlier, it applies to the chains. And because of all the freeze efficiency, cryo efficiency we have, that actually allows the chains to freeze other enemies as well. See? And that in turn is good, because when they are frozen, then the chains can actually heal us through refreshment, which is a very nice combo on pretty much all the healing that you get, unless you're using the knife drain. I will include a cut purse and a knife drain, like in case shit hits the fan and you really need it. But most of the time, everything should be taken care of. Like the face puncher doesn't consume that much ammo because it's not a ×2 version, and health should be able to just be gained through refreshment without anything else having to be concerned about that. That's also one of the reasons why I actually went that far down into the green tree. Because the salvation only works on gun damage, and since the face puncher is melee damage, that just doesn't work.